Okay. Alright. Right here, we left up last video here. I was still discussing what is number 4. So, basically, it's kind of what the team was up to. Also in the book, I forgot to mention, in the main Invaders book, they're mentioning a tease for a team about to discuss in a minute. We'll discuss a couple of comics here. Something called All Winners. Yes, All Winners. They were teasing that in the main Invaders book. A group that did technically exist in our comics before a lot of the other superheroes. And basically, the one of them 4 just leads directly into the ending leads into this old school Golden Age comic book known as All Winners number 19. And this comic is similar to the old All-Star Comics book from also the same time period, though it was published prior to that. Basically, it is just the team's first appearance. Historically, the first Chronicles appearance of the team was in What If number 4. It is simple that the Invaders, Limited Legion disbanded, and of course, this is the team that existed just after World War II wrapped up. And they appeared in this book. There is also a 21st issue of this book, yes. But here's the weird thing. Issue 20 of this book, yes, issue 20. So, basically, for this opening issue here, yeah, this comic was released back, I think it was like in the late 40s, I think it was. It was July of 1946, so chronologically, this is just after the What If issue. So, the team itself, basically, because Limited Legion and Invaders disbanded at the end of World War II, and this was the team that basically continued to operate in the 1940s. They, of course, were brought up in the Avengers, the Captain America Patriot book. And this is Submariner, Captain America. This, of course, at the time this was released, this actually was Steve Rogers on the mask, along with Bucky being James Buchanan Barnes. Except that established because of retcon, this is Spirit 76, who is the original character from Captain America comics. Well, basically, yeah. So, Bucky, of course, is not. Yeah, he is not James Buchanan Barnes. No. He is a former Bat-Boy. Yes, who debuted back in Captain America Comics number 49. That was technically his, kind of his first appearance, per se. Though, his appearance there is pretty much just a retcon. Yes, he was introduced in the 70s, and he appears here in this comic book. Because originally it was James Buchanan Barnes, and of course, Steve Rogers under those masks. But because the retcon in the 60s, they decided to retcon it where, it wasn't those two, it was these other two people. And so, the fight of this guy called Izbiza, who is this villain who appears in this particular comic book. He doesn't appear very much, per se. No, he appears in All War Comics 19. And then his next appearance is not until Vision Scarlet Witch number 2, which was released in 1982, which was also the death of the Wizard. Yeah, he got killed off in the book because reasons. Then he popped up in Saga Submariner number 6. This was I think this was an original comic book, if I remember correctly. Yeah, this is an original comic book. Really good. Roy Thomas wrote it. There was Saga Team of Torch. This one, I believe, was a... No, just a retelling. I'll probably just no one's. And then he popped up in Central She-Hulk 29 and 30, and that was it for him. Yeah, he never played Africus. Mostly put, he was the first one they fought, and there are backup stories in here. Yes, basically the whole thing. The first story is called Crime of Ages, and here's the thing: all the stories in here are pretty much mostly written by Bill Finger. You're thinking, wait a minute, the co-creator of Batman co-created the All-Warrior Squadron. Yes. Yes, indeed. Now, the stories are Crime of Ages, Age of Bronze, Iron Age, Steel Age, Pearls of Wisdom, Stone Age, Ice Age, Conclusion. The artist is basically Sid Shores and Alan Bedman. Stanley was the editor. There was one story, Pearls of Wisdom. There's actually no credited writer for this one. Not really, no. And most about the team comes together, and basically they go on those separate adventures while part of the All-Winner Squadron in this one issue. The opening story, Age of Bronze, focuses on Cap and Bucky take on Isabella. Iron Age, as Wizard taking him on. Steel Age is Human Torch. Basically, Pearls of Wisdom is a standalone story, has nothing to do with the hero stuff. And then we have the Stone Age, which has basically also Miss America dealing with stuff. And, well, we also you have this one-shot appearance of a character named the Calcium Master. He is a criminal hired by East Visa to basically deal with the invaders in this one issue. The All Winners. And the Ice Age is Submariner and Toro. We do debut one new character, Black Patch, who only appears in this one issue. He never appears again. He's just basically pirates. And he comes together and they beat East Visa. Now, weirdly enough, the next issue is not all Winners comics. Nope. For one issue, it's called All Teen Comics. And then, of course, basically after, here's the thing: there is one more comic book? Yes, there is. So this is kind of weird. So it becomes All Teen Comics with issue number 20, and apparently All Teen Comics basically maintained that numbering for one issue, and it became Teen Comics. It's a romance comic that lasted until issue 35, and then become Journey into Unknown Worlds, which basically was relaunched from this book. Yes. So in the case of so the book itself was continued from one issue from an old comic book known as Young Allies, which was an actual group of characters from this particular time period. Love of Lucky Barnes. We have a character named Knuckles, Jeff, Whitewash, Tubby, and Toro. Yes, the Young Allies. The original version of the group is nothing like the one that was assembled in their book. Yeah. So they decided to take over their 21st issue. Yes, when they brought back the group for one issue. And this book is done by Otto Bender. Those thinking, who the heck is Otto Bender? Otto Bender is the co-creator of the Legion of Superheroes. And he creates two brand new characters, Future Man and Madam Death. Yes, they decided to create brand spanking new characters here for this one issue. Now, you're probably thinking, like the previous book, are they ever going to go separate things fight them? Yes. First is the Green Plague, where you have focus on Cap and Bucky. Murder in the Shell Motion is Wizard, of course, is Wizard. Wave of Destruction, Submariner. Holiday of Murder has nothing to do with the main story at all. The Living Dead is Miss America, Flames Fury, Human Torch, and Toro. And the War Between Worlds basically has, well, the winter stuff. Yes. And you probably think, is that pretty much it for the All Winners? Well, the team itself? No. There is actually one more comic discussed for them. That is part of their stuff. I'm only discussing All Winners because, of course, this was the team that came just after the Invaders. And it's a comic published for Marvel's 70th anniversary, known as All Winners 70th Anniversary Special. Here's the cover. Yes, even has the old time logo thing. This was to celebrate 70 years of Marvel Comics. And the team was brought together again for this one issue. And in this issue here, they kill off Future Man and Matter Death. Now, the issue itself is only just, well, the opening. Now, I should point out, though, that the second story in the book is a reprint from Wisdom number 2, well, all Warner comic number 2. And then we have issue 12, basically reprint from that one, too. Yeah, so it retcons the ending of issue 21, where, yeah, the two villains in issue, yeah, they get killed off here. And those of you curious, who writes this issue? Carl Kitzler. Really? Yeah, really. That's who writes the comic. And, of course, also, as you mentioned, basically that they do, in fact, explore stuff related to the All-Winter Squadron in flashback. So, after the All-Winter Squadron issues, or Comics 1921, there is, of course, the What If comic. There's lots of flashbacks. Captain America A number 6, Saga Summer number 6, Saga Human Torch number 3, Essential She-Hulk number 22, Marvel Knights number 9, Fallen to Death of Captain America. This comic, the Captain America Patriots series, which they were in the first reissue of the book. The final issue of Edward Brigger's Captain America, and Kane X Annual Volume number 1, Marvel Book 1000, Marvel Snapshots. The most recent appearance in comic books was actually in The Marvels number 1. In a flashback. Of course, a flashback. I kind of wish Marvel would give their own separate book for them, because they're really good characters. I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, this book is so awesome. Like, I give basically the All Winners Comics 1921 and this anniversary issue a 10 out of 10, because it's all really good. Yes. Oh, in case you're curious, we can find the All Winners one. Well, this one shot has been collected twice. First was in the Captain America Patriot miniseries, the tribute for that one, and the 70th anniversary hardcover, which collects all the 70th anniversary one-shots. Yep. But, yeah, that's it for that one. Alright, so next up we have is... No, not that one. Next up we have is the Chronicles of Solomon Kane, and this is more stuff by Roy Thomas. Written by Roy Thomas, Ralph Macchio, Howard Jenkins, Brett Bevins, and others. This particular trade paperback, which is published by Dark Horse Comics, collects Marvel Premiere 33, 34, which is known as the Mark Kane storyline, along with Solomon Kane's own miniseries, his only self-titled book published by Marvel Comics. And the only reason why now here's the thing, Marvel had apparently had decided to just end the feature, his backup feature, to give him these two things. And then as soon as these books wrapped up, he's right back to backup features right after this. So basically, I mentioned Ralph Macchio and Roy Thomas are the writers. Artwork is Howard Jenkins, Steve Carr, Brett Bivens, Mike Manoli, John Bagivia, John Ridgway, and Al Williamson. So, like I mentioned, it contains the Solomon Kane miniseries, which was 6 issues, along with Marvel Premiere issues 34 and 35. So, Roy Thomas does the Marvel Premiere issues, while Ralph Macchio does the Solomon Kane miniseries. Starting off with issue 33, where it's a story for... This book is called Mark of Kane. It's a Solomon Kane story. Yes, it is a story all about Solomon Kane. Now, of course, the title Mark of Kane would actually be used by Kane Parker, the Scarlet Spider. So, I love the restored artwork they have here for this one. This one, I think, this book was published in the 1970s. It looks really good. So, you just have Solomon Kane just fighting cultists in this issue, yes, he fights some cults, and he basically has to do it with the death, and it is just really... He also finds a woman in the woods. Yes, a woman in the woods, which he helps her out, and of course you have other people basically trying to persuade his way. Also, the style of artwork here must be restored because he looks completely different from his appearances over his black and white stuff. And by the way, these comics in particular are the only comics when Marvel originally published Solomon Kane. These are the only comics published in color. Everything else is black and white. Yes, even his Marvel preview issue is black and white. So, just a swashbuckler take on a bad guy, takes him out, and then we have issue number 34, which has to take on a gorilla. Yes, a gorilla. And a story called Things of the Gorilla God. So, after doing some Native American tribe, this of course is the 1500s. So, of course, basically, I think he's in America at this point. I believe so, because he's not in whatever he was his main stories. And then we go to his miniseries known as The Sword of Solomon Kane. Love this artwork here. The cover is fantastic. If anybody ever did a Hall of Fame for covers, this miniseries basically would fit that bill because the covers here are gorgeous. Now, Ralph Macchio takes over the writing duties of Solomon Kane for this miniseries. Now, Roy Thomas, I think, wrote a good majority of the stories related to Solomon Kane, and this basically is not done by him. So, you have Steve Carr and Brett Bivens do this opening issue. We just have Solomon Kane saving a girl who's like near dead. And basically, she dies. And basically, he goes after one people. Now, kind of in a way, this miniseries is falling from the Marvel premiere issues. So, the Mark Kane two-parter is adapted from the Robert E. Howard short story. Oh, and the villain of this one is called La Loop. Well, he gets killed off at the start of the Solomon Kane miniseries. Because why not? And we also have Golga the Gorilla Slayer, Gaston, the first appearance, the first issue by a guy by the name of Nalaga. Oh, Africa. So basically, he's in Africa for this miniseries. So I thought it was the U.S. No, it's actually he's in Africa. This miniseries, and this continues right where, that miniseries left off, and. Mostly put, he deals with werewolves, and basically a lot of it, and of course they kill off characters usually 3, Ben Adorum, Fishhook, George Bowie. Yeah, they get killed off here. There's a character named Rupert Darcy, who is, original to this book. He does appear in the next issue. Yep. And we debut in issue 5, Alabama Kappa Ben R. Sørensen. Now, do these characters appear after this? Yeah. Well, basically, he's still in Africa. Basically, he's, well, he leaves Africa and goes to Saudi Arabia. Yes. To a place known as Mountain of Sighs. Yep. And he does that for issue 4. By the way, he starts on issue 1 in France and Africa. And then issue number 2, no stated where he went. 3, of course, basically he's back in England. Issue 4, Saudi Arabia. In issue 5. 5, of course, he goes back to Africa. And then for the final issue of this miniseries, they need to be a place called Bagoya. And, of course, in the last issue, he fights basically something called a Keda. Basically, a race of savage, bloodthirsty, bat-like humanoids. He fights them in this book. And that's it. Yep. Otherwise, though, basically, this book was actually really good. Yes, I enjoy the artwork here for this entire miniseries. And sadly put, that's the end of Solomon Kane's time on our comics. With that, I'm done reviewing for Solomon Kane. Because there's nothing else to review for him. Basically 2 trades did for him. The Chronicles of Solomon Kane in this book was his whole run. Of course, when Marvel Comics got their hands on the characters again, Marvel just printed this. Instead of giving it like a new printing of like an Epic collection or something for Solomon Kane, they just basically took the 2 stuff published in 2 trades and just put them in an omnibus. Yes. That's what Marvel did. They put them in an omnibus of Solomon Kane, the original Marvel years, which there's not a lot of stories in there. It's actually between, he has less stories than Conan. And he's also a creation of Solomon Kane because you're probably thinking, what happened to him right after this miniseries wrapped up? Well, he's back to backup features again. And he remained that way from Rainer's time at Marvel Comics. Yep. So, right after, he had basically appeared in, the Marvel premiere issues came out between issue 14 of Savage Sword Conan and issue 18 of that series. This miniseries came up between issue 83 of Savage Sword Conan and issue 162. So, the Savage Sword Conan issue that he appeared in came out in October 1982. The first issue of this miniseries came out in June of 1985, roughly 3 years later. And then, by the end of it, he's in basically 1986. And then, he returns over to Savage Sword Conan for issue numbers 162. Roughly 3 years later, he's there for a couple issues. He appears in Conan Saga. He appears in a backup story in Doctor Strange. Actually, it was a flashback of Doctor Strange. And then he appears in the 2 issue of Savage Sword Conan. And so, those last 2 issues were released in 1994. Yep, 94. And then, no more reader will see him again until, get this, 2019. Roughly 25 years later. Yep. Where Marvel Comics decided to bring in Dark Agnes, a character who did get her own miniseries, and she had 2 issues published, and then the book was canceled. Yep, the book was canceled. And weirdly enough, Marvel afterwards never bothered to reprint the miniseries. You're like, really? Yeah, Marvel never did. As for the reason for it, it's a complete mystery. I mean, it was interesting that they brought back Solomon Kane for this miniseries, but they did nothing with him. Well, actually, they gave him a backup feature in the book. Yep, they did. And by the book wrapped up, that was the last you ever saw of Solomon Kane. You're like, really? Yeah, really. That was the last you ever saw the guy. Because he had nothing else for him. Yep. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the video. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe to notifications. Well, I'm just going to go ahead and watch, I'll probably watch Comic in a bit and do another Comic Corner later, okay? Next video. Bye.